This is the Horse Radio Network.
Being straight in the saddle is harder than it sounds. This week, we'll share tips on how not to be crooked, thanks to the German Riding Instructor. We're also talking to a hunter rider who has made it his mission to rescue as many adorable, abandoned mini ponies as he humanly can. And make sure you stay tuned until the end of the episode because we've got a huge surprise for you. Thanks for tuning in. From Heels Down Mag, a podcast where horse pros chat about what's happening in the horse world over drinks. Welcome to Happy Hour. I'm Justine Griffin.
I'm Jessica Payne.
And I'm Ellie Woznicka. Welcome to episode 53 of Heels Down Happy Hour.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
I'm
nice
getting the
toasty.
heat now.
I was going to say, you got to be hot.
Yeah, it's going to be 91 on Thursday. So
I feel like that's the same temperature as Justine and I.
Oh, God, that's unbearable.
Nice and wet and gross. But how's that going with Doug and everybody in Aiken preparing for the Pan Ams? Like they're getting prepped for the heat, I guess?
Yeah, getting prepped for the heat. Well, it's actually because it's winter down there, but it's a halfway point between Pennsylvania and Miami. All the ponies will fly out of Miami. So they are doing training sessions at Stable U, but that place is like 10 degrees colder than everywhere in Aiken because they have that breeze on top of the mountain and they have that beautiful covered arena. So they're not too shabby over at those parts.
Nice. So this episode is brought to you by Arena Saddles, which if you guys already tuned into that episode, I talked all about Arena Saddles because I just got one and I'm really obsessed with how beautifully styled and all the attention to detail this company puts into every single saddle they make. It's incredibly comfortable. It's beautiful. It's comfortable. It makes me feel confident in the saddle. So if you want to find out more information about Arena Saddles, which they make all-purpose jumping and dressage saddles, you can go to arenasaddles.com.
Our drink this week is from Kayla in our Facebook group that if you guys haven't joined, you totally should. Heels Down Happy Hour Podcast Lounge. And she calls this an after horse show drink. So it's basically spiced rum and lemonade in a glass with some molten watermelon and a dash of salt. The molten means that you soak the watermelon in rum.
Ooh.
So it's a whole lot of rum.
Yeah. I feel like that's like an old trick from college that we used to do. You know, like you soaked fruit in alcohol and then you would basically eat/drink it later at a barbecue or at a tailgate thing. But this sounds like a more adult version in that you turn it into an actual cocktail.
Yeah, I agree. It made me think of soaked gummy bears, and those are terrible.
Yes.
So. Whoever thought that was a good idea was yikes.
Yep.
Well, so unfortunately, guys, I have some depressing news this week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so the FEI board has announced its desire to remove reining as an FEI discipline. So this is super sad for me, just because I will totally miss seeing reiners at WEG. But so basically, when you get into it, like in a contract with FEI, FEI wants to be the sole authority for international events. And the issue is that the NRHA, which was already established before reining was accepted as an FEI discipline, and they already host quite a lot of international reining events. So FEI saw that it was just kind of not worth it for them to support the discipline, considering that the NRHA already has more members and hosts international events. So that'll be really sad for me. But luckily, it doesn't mean reining's going away.
No, but that's sad. We had so much fun watching it. We were at Tryon for the WEGs, and we went to the reining portion of it, and it was so much fun to watch. So it will be sad to not see them there.
Ellie, do you have any idea, like, how is the reining community taking this news? Are they upset by it, or they're like, meh, we're happy doing our own thing, or what comes next?
So I don't think it'll have much of an impact, to be completely honest. Just because NRHA is already like the preferred organization by most competitors. I think the article even says there's like 14,000 ish more members in the NRHA than the FEI.
Wow.
Yeah. And the NRHA, I mean, it's pretty strong. Like I went to the fraternity in Oklahoma a couple years ago. And I mean, there were riders from all over the world competing. I mean, for big money and I mean, lots of really nice horses. I mean, classes were like 300 strong. It was insane.
Wow.
So
Oh
I
my
can't imagine
gosh.
being a judge watching a pattern that many times, but it was actually for a judging competition and I only watched 20 and I was like, oh my God, all these horses are so nice. How do you like, but anyway, so I don't think it'll have a huge impact. But it's still sad to not be included in WEG. I think that'll be hard for us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in totally different news, have you guys seen this gypsy cob that it takes 10 hours, up to 10 hours to watch its mane and tail and plait it, like and braid it, what we say over here. This thing is unbelievable. It's beautiful, but its tail drags like 5 feet behind it, I feel like.
What?
Have you seen the picture? Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to send you guys these pictures and we'll post it for all you guys that are listening because it's a black and white paint, but its mane and tail are touching the ground. The tail is like flowing behind. So the girl that owns it has to braid it and put it up every day because it was like dragging. Obviously, like if it went and stepped back. So the tail lives like basically braided at the hocks. And then she braids the mane all the way down and then like braids it into like different sections and stuff. But it is unbelievable. And it takes her up to, could you imagine 10 hours
I
of
would
just
die.
braiding it?
I would just die.
I feel like I would roach it before I would spend 10 hours doing that.
But
Oh my
she's now
gosh.
like, she has this whole following, like everybody loves it. And she said she went out riding once and they came across a thoroughbred and the thoroughbred almost jumped in the ditch because it was so terrified of its mane and tail because it's like flowing like locks.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure it's the photos are beautiful and I'm sure the photos don't even do it justice, but it does remind me of when I did the college mascot program. You know, the horse we had was
right.
a half Andalusian and we wanted him to have the big flowing, beautiful mane when he was at the football games. And so we used to have to keep it braided and condition it all the time. You know what I mean? And that took a ton of work just to kind of keep that one going. And that's nowhere near the level of this horse. And I'm having like PTSD flashbacks from college.
It's beautiful though.
Yeah, but it is a lot of work. People who do that, I mean, more credit to them because that is a ton of work.
I know.
I mean, it's the same thing for like reiner's manes, right? But
oh, that's true.
I mean, the longest I've seen a reiner's mane is like right above the knee. But even that, I can't imagine. I'm like, okay, it covers most of your neck. That's good enough. Like I'm just like, I'm gonna snip the edges. I'm terrible.
This one, they say that its mane and tail just does not stop growing. It's pretty incredible.
That's nice.
And speaking of incredible, you have Justina Science weird one, of course.
Yeah, so there was this story in the Chronicle of the Horse this week that I just thought was the coolest medical mystery story I've read in a long time. It's about a show jumper that showed in the high adult jumpers for a while named Chanel B. And it sounds like she's a pretty well-known horse down on the WEF circuit. She's owned by Karen Long Dwight, but Tori Colvin rode her to an individual bronze at the Young Riders Championships. So she's a very competitive horse. She's been around the jumpers for a while, but I guess she developed this mass in her jaw, in her bottom jaw, and it was just this hard lump that didn't seem to bother her. So they just kind of kept an eye on it, but it kept getting bigger and bigger to the point that the poor mare's like lower teeth started being pushed out of alignment. So they were pretty nervous about this at that time, and they call her Nellie around the barn. So they did a radiograph, and it revealed that she had a tumor actually in her jaw. So what the vets did down in Florida is they actually removed part of her bottom jaw in order to save her. to get rid of that lump. And it's the photos in the story are just like unbelievable when you look at them. You're just like, what? So now she recovered great, even though, the owners were super worried that they thought they might have to put her down after all of this, but she recovered great. And so she shows now, and it actually, you kind of almost would never know, but she's basically like doesn't have a chin. She has no bottom teeth anymore. They had to remove that much of her lower jaw. But, they still ride her in a bit. They say she's still able to graze. It's funny how adaptable animals are, but she recovered great, and she's back in the show ring, and she just basically competes without no bottom teeth and no chin and a much shorter, lower jaw than any other horse. But it's pretty cool.
But she doesn't seem to care. It's pretty awesome.
I know. She seems like the perfect candidate for, like having a injury or a surgery like that she just kind of goes, whatever, like she's back to being herself. Because I know not all of the horses we own are that easygoing with the big change like that. Yeah. But it's pretty cool. There are 1,001 reasons why us riders leave our trainers. And usually it's dramatic, it's emotional. The relationship you have with your trainer is special and usually one of a kind, but for whatever reason, there are times where it's just necessary that you have to leave and go on to greener pastures. We're going to be discussing the reasons why riders leave their trainers in the brief, starting the week of July 22nd. So if you want to take part of that conversation, you should subscribe to the brief, which is our daily email newsletter, by going to bit.ly/hdbrief. All right, guys. So I know we've talked about ice horse boots and just generally cold therapy practices in the past, but I just got a pair of Ice Horse's suspensory wraps, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about them. Ellie or Jess, have you guys ever had a horse with a suspensory injury?
Yes.
Had to rehab it?
Mm-hmm.
I leased one for probably 4 or 5 years. And he was an old Hanoverian, and he had them all the time. Like, it just would, once it happens, it's so hard, like spraining an ankle,
Right, exactly. So, luckily, knock on wood, fingers crossed, all the, right juju moments. My horse does not have an injury, but I really like these wraps even for everyday use. Some people may know them if you're an ice horse fan. They used to call them the Evandura wrap. And it provides coverage from just below the knee along the entire cannon, the pastern, and fetlock areas, and rests on the coronet band. And so basically it covers the entire length of the suspensory ligament. And just like the regular ice horse boots, they use these really great cold inserts that, you shove them in the freezer, but when you pull them out, they're soft and fluffy, almost like snow on the inside. They don't freeze like a hard block. So they're really easy to kind of crunch up and get nice and soft and movable before you add them to the wrap. And so they kind of mold right to your horse's leg very easily. They have Velcro inserts that just kind of fit very naturally into the wrap. The best part about the cold inserts is they're reusable, and they kind of live up until they're about 50 uses, so 50 times freezing them and thawing them before you have to buy new ones. And I think what I like most about it, because with horses who've had injuries like this in the past, at least in my lifetime, is we've always put them in the big rubber ice boots where you had to fill with actual physical ice. And while those work great and there's nothing wrong with them, they're just so messy, right? There's water everywhere, there's ice everywhere. It makes a mess on the cross tiles and in the barn aisle. And the best thing about these cold inserts from Ice Horse is that they kind of do all the work for you without having to make a big mess. So I really like them. I definitely would recommend them if someone, is looking at rehabbing a horse with a suspensory injury and you're looking at your options. I think they do the job just as well as, icing them in a big bucket. If you want to learn more about Ice Horse products, you can go to their website, which is icehorse.net.
So I'm really excited to announce our next guest, Josh Dolan. He is a very good friend of ours, and he actually started the whole Peeps Foundation. He's a professional rider from Hilton Head, South Carolina, and he is a rider and trainer at Mad Season LLC, where he primarily competes in the hunter rings. He's achieved a wide variety of success as a rider. As a junior rider, he was accomplished equitation rider, acquiring the USET Talent Search Bronze Medal for winning 20 classes. Josh is the founder of the Peeps Foundation, a 501c nonprofit organization dedicated to rescuing and rehoming miniature horses. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm excited you're on and get to talk about this because Josh actually let me come with Hudson to the Peeps Foundation in Kentucky. Josh actually didn't even know I had a son when he saw I had seen him like a year and a half. He walks up, he goes, "You have a baby?"
Whose baby is that?
I was like,
and he was like
fine.
a real newborn. He wasn't even like a newborn. It was like a real thing.
No, he could do everything. So Josh was so nice. He let us come over. They were actually about to leave. I think they were going to Africa at the time. And it was so fun. So we got to go. Doug, Hudson, and myself went and saw it. And Hudson loved all the little animals. I have the cutest pictures for everybody from there because we saw little miniature cows and miniature horses and all the little animals running around. He was like in heaven running up and down. So it was the cutest thing. So it was so nice of you, but we loved it. So
it really is like paradise here every day. I have to say it's pretty awesome to call this home.
Yeah. Your place in Kentucky is beautiful. We had so much fun there and we're so thankful that you let us do it. So I feel like it was a privilege. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we hope to have you back, soon. If not this year, whenever you're back in Kentucky.
I know next time we'll come knocking on the doors for sure. So, but tell us a little bit.
And I have a new farm too, actually, that you're going to really freak out. It's like twice as big as my old farm. And
no
so
way.
There's like twice as many animals. Oh yeah. I just closed on it and, it's literally like paradise. I mean, it's maybe 2 miles from the horse park. It has its own mini barn. It matches a house. It has a lake. It has an indoor, another house on the property for staff. And the fields they're amazing. They just roll forever. And the lake for all my retired horses, kind of in the center of like the giant paddock at the back of it. And it's really special.
Oh, it sounds like heaven. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How did you get started with the Peeps Foundation?
So it was really kind of like a fluke thing. When I was growing up, I did not really come from like horse people. My parents only kind of were in the horses because I was like one of those kids who was just obsessed with them. Like I grew up in a plantation on Hilton Head that had a stable by the back gate. And my mom said when I was like a little kid, I would constantly like ask to go by and pet the horses. So they like did a little birthday party when I was like 4 years old, and it just never stopped. And kind of one thing led to another, and then eventually, after like years of like begging my parents, they decided, okay, we should buy a farm because I was, had a few horses at the time, and I was riding with the Towels. And so my parents bought me a farm in Greenville, South Carolina, and we were there for quite a while. And I didn't keep really my show horses there. They still stay with the Towels, but that was kind of like where, I don't want to say I really kind of got into rescue, but I acquired a lot of animals that really needed help. And just because it was the right thing to do. So, one thing led to another, and then my parents ended up selling the farm. And fast forward a couple of years later, I was in Kentucky showing, and Derek Braun, before his horse shows were like, the big Split Rock shows he used to have, they were like smaller kind of schooling shows, and I had just gotten these 2 new horses in. So my older brother's in town from LA, and we were going to go over, and I was going to school my new horses at a different show or a different venue. And on his road, there was like a field that once was a farm with many horses, and we passed it, and my older brother was like, oh my gosh, we have to go there when we're done. So anyway, showed my horses, got in the car, we pulled in, and we couldn't really see anything, so we went down the neighbor's driveway, and then we like really realized that it was like not a good situation. And actually the very first movie I saw was actually Peeps and her mom, and the guy had kind of like about 40 acres, and anyone knows Kentucky, the grass is amazing here, and there was not one blade of grass on the property. It was overgrown with weeds, probably like 6 or 8 feet tall. There was 3, we jumped the fence. There was 3 dead ones in the back paddock.
Oh.
They had no water. It was horrific. So we called the police and animal control, and it was not really, I guess, it wasn't panning out the way I thought it was. So the police did come and they did a report, but then they realized it was in the wrong jurisdiction. So they turned it over to the neighboring county, which is Bourbon County. And they said it was a state investigation, blah, blah, blah. So 3 days later, we came back to check on it, and 2 more were dead in the field. So it was really, really bad. So I didn't know what to do. I left a note. I wrote a note. I left it in the gate, and there was nobody. It did not appear that anybody was living there, but I left the note in the gate before I was going to come back the next day and really try to make something happen. And the guy called me that night, and he said he would sell me his miniature horses really cheap. So I told Alex, I told my brother, we got in the trailer the next morning and we went over there and we bought, I think it was 21 the first day.
Wow.
And then, I think we purchased 10, and then he gave us like 11. Like, if you could catch them, you can have them. So we tried to get, all the stallions so we could build them. And so we got that. And then the horse show world was like amazing. There was a horse show going on, and so people heard about it. So there's a few people that reached out like, hey, we're willing to help. So by that time, I would say probably 12 within 3 or 4 days had already gone to new homes. So then we went back and got more from him. And in total, we got 46 from his farm.
Wow.
And one of those was Peeps in the original rescue. And then it really started when we had an article done with a magazine, and we had a lot of people reach out to us about it. And then the whole dwarf thing, because Peeps is a dwarf, we got contacted by a few people who have dwarves, and we just kind of stayed in touch. And then I think those people kind of realized what we were capable of doing in our world with the vets and farriers we work with. So then that's kind of when we all were like, okay, this is probably something we really could help a lot of animals with. Kind of with the idea of just rescuing and rehoming, not really thinking we would get big enough to have multiple chapters and have like a sanctuary and really be able to specialize in the dwarves that need a lot of help and corrective shoeing. But it all just kind of happened that way. And now to date, we've rescued and rehomed over 500. And we have, I think, about 32 permanent dwarf residents here, and then probably another 10 or 12 older, like kind of ancient minis that are kind of our permanent residents, and then a mix of all the ones we have available. So I think actually right now, I think we have about 70 or so at our farm.
That's amazing. And I know you split your time, because it's not just
Yep.
to the farm in Kentucky, right? Because I remember we wrote a story on Hillstown Magazine about you as well, and you were in Wellington at the time.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what we still do the same thing. I think this year it'll be a little different. We won't go 6 months and 6 months. I think it'll be more like 4 and 8 here, because our farm is larger. We don't have to travel with so many of the special needs ones, because a lot of our dwarves, so many of them wear shoes, and it's so labor intensive. We can't leave them, with just normal care behind. So we had to travel with a lot of them. So we still are splitting our time, but this winter will probably be a little lighter. We'll probably take between 15 and 20 minis to Florida. Like last year we had, I think, like 30 or 40. So it'll be a little bit of I think an easier time for everybody, being able to, have a bigger farm and support more here full time. We're able to focus a little bit more on the ones that like really need our, attention, and then obviously our show horses.
So since you started the Peeps Foundation, I'm a huge fan of your Instagram, because it's not just the adorable minis, but you have some other animals. But I know there are a lot of, well-known riders, from like Kaylee Kuko to Jen Gates, who have adopted minis from you, right?
Yeah, a lot of big-time people. Bin Mayer adopted one from us. Jen Gates has, adopted one from us. Jessie Springsteen actually adopted 2 from us for her mom as a Christmas present.
Oh, that's so cute.
The Sheik of, I don't remember, maybe it's Qatar. He adopted 2 from us, and they flew to Qatar. They actually fly back and forth from Qatar, his farm in England and his farm in Lexington.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. There's some really big time minis that we've placed. It's really cool that we're able to, kind of be connected all through, really the horse world. And some of these guys have really landed in some amazing homes.
And then you have other animals too. It's not just like you were talking about other organizations. We were there. You have llamas and cows. And what else do you have?
So, yeah, we have, it's funny because it kind of started like just, not really turning out to be a rescue. Obviously, I love animals, love to help animals, but, it wasn't like we set out one day and like, okay, we're starting a nonprofit. And when we did, it was really just geared towards the rescue and rehoming of the minis. And now it's in the sanctuary chapter, and now it's becoming more than that because we're rescuing more animals. Like currently we have 3 mini dwarf cows. One came from a really sad situation. We have 3 llamas now. 2 are actually being bottle fed. They were recent rescues. And we have 4 goats. All were rescues. Either the mothers abandoned them, 1 died. So we have bottle fed them since they were just days old. And then we have a kangaroo who's joined our rescue. He has 1 hand and was sold at an exotic animal sale to a canned hunt in Mexico. And we intercepted him. It's a crazy kind of situation, kind of through a vet friend of mine who was at the sale and called me and was like, there's just something about this guy. Like, I really, really hate to see this happen. Is there any way you can step in? So we got in contact with the people. And then when I left Florida, I had my older brother who flew in to help me do the trip. So in my SUV, I had 2 dogs, 1 goat, and the kangaroo when we intercepted in Atlanta. So it was like a wild ride, that's for sure.
And did you get the giraffe you were talking about getting or no?
Oh yeah. So the giraffe has happened, but because I have a new farm, the giraffe barn is not built. So it's actually going to attach to the back of my indoor. And my outdoor ring is going to be right next to the giraffe paddock. So I think it'll be a very good experience for all of our horses to, not that I haven't seen anything in the entire world, but I think when you ride next, in your arena, I think they can handle anything when they go to the horse show.
That's the one Doug's going to want to see. He is like dying to see. He's like, I want to go see a giraffe. If there's really going to be a giraffe, he's like, I want to go back.
I'm sure the giraffe will like him the best. He's tall enough that the
right. And they're ginger. They'll like get along.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I'm really excited about that.
Speaking about your riding horses, how do you balance your hunter riding and your riding business with your foundation?
It goes on. I seem to be showing less and less. I really love nice horses, and I love the process of like finding them, and I love showing, but I've always kind of been into buying them in Europe and showing them some and selling them, and it's just really evolved to now I barely show them before they're sold. So right now I have 2 that are going and 1 that's getting ready to start. But I have only showed the new one. Maybe I think I showed him 1 time in Tryon, and he already has 2 people flying in to try him. So it seems to really balance itself out because they get sold so quickly. It's not like a huge commitment, trying to plan their show careers and all that. And, I don't really have a lot of like personal goals or anything in the sport. So I kind of just, take it show by show. And if I feel like going this place and if I have the horses to do it, I do go there. And so far it just seems to be working out.
I feel like that's such a great mentality to have and to hear from. You've got all this going on with helping so many horses, and you're still doing what you love.
So Josh, if someone wants to get involved, if someone wants to adopt or wants to see where they can adopt, maybe like a list of horses that you have available for adoption, or if they want to donate, or if they want to get involved and volunteer, where should they go?
So our website is called thepeatsfoundation.org, and it's actually getting completely redone. It should be done completely by next week. And we have some information on there already that should answer some of those questions, but you can always just shoot us an email, and I actually get the email from my phone too. So more than likely, no matter who reads them, I will get them at some point as well. The adoption thing, that's probably one of the most popular questions we get, because our foundation is fairly popular on Instagram and a lot of social media stuff. So it's it's hard for a lot of people to understand because they do put in applications, and a lot of people don't understand why they don't get an email about ones that are available or so forth, because our system's a little bit different. We have probably 300 and something approved applications currently waiting to adopt Mini. So it's a lot of people don't realize that, just the sheer volume we have of people ready. But what we do is, because in the past, we used to go through each application and, approve you, not approve you, send you an email and tell you that. But what we've been doing is we've been trying to, we are implementing a new system, but the last, let's say 75 applications we had before this are all getting personal emails saying, okay, yes, here's what's available, here's not what's available, but that's quickly ending. And what we're going to do now is we're going to post available minis, and every application that's submitted has a number to us. So when you see a mini that you really like, you email us, and then with your reference number for your application, then we go through the application, because, so many times we were going through, 50 a day. And then when we approve somebody, sent them that available, we never heard from them again. And it's really a time consuming thing. And, we really do it ourselves. At the end of the day, I'm finished writing, my list. Alex is finished writing his list. I mean, we were in the barn till 8:30 last night doing, mini shoes on 4 different minis that needed new shoes. And then, you go inside, and then I'm trying to sort through 100 emails. So it was a time consuming process to, go through the entire list of applications and then approve or not approve. So we're going to see if this system works a little bit better, putting the minis out there that are available. And then you tell us your reference number to your application, and then we'll approve you or not approve you.
So again, that website is the Peeps, or peepsfoundation.org. Peeps is PEEPS foundation.org.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Absolutely, guys. I'm happy to help, and thank you so much for choosing me and the foundation to spread a little light on. We could, the more our ultimate goal is, to be able to help any animal in need. So the bigger our foundation can get, the more likely we can make that happen.
Excellent.
EIS shirts are designed for energetic people in need of high-performance sun protection. EIS stands for Energetic Innovation and Style. These shirts are amazing, guys. And if you haven't checked them out, you totally should. They're stylish, and they keep you super cool and protect you from harmful UV rays. They have a new website now and new colors and styles. So check out their new stuff at eis-wear.com.
So, guys, I went to a German riding instructor show jumping clinic, and I survived.
And you were perfect.
Oh, thank you so much.
It was good. You were so terrified about it. And
I really was. I was. I feel silly that I was so nervous because I had such a good time. But I learned a lot. So I was hoping we could spend some time I could kind of share what I learned from Ronnie, who we've had on the show before, because I just, I think it's almost universal. Like a lot of his tips, he's obviously from Germany, so he has a very European style, but he blends it very well with an American riding style. I just really like his style as a clinician. I learned a lot. The clinic was well attended. I feel like he had a really interesting group of riders from different backgrounds, but he's just an interesting instructor who can kind of handle any situation. So I know we asked for, more questions for mailbags in our Facebook group recently, and a lot of the questions had to do with, crooked riding exercises and different riding specific ideas. So I thought maybe we could just talk about that today in this segment, which this segment is presented by Arena Saddles. So the first thing I learned from Ronnie was that I am a very crooked rider, which is something I already knew going in. I am a left dominant person, which is really interesting because I'm technically right-handed. So I don't know why I ride so dominant on my left side. I mean, do you guys have that problem? Do you feel like you have one side that you're stronger on than another?
I feel like everybody does.
Yeah.
And it switches, like you work on it, because you get better at it, and then you swap sides. So absolutely. I think, Doug and I always laugh because we are opposite sides. And then lately he's like swapped over again. So now we're like on the same side problem. But I think everybody kind of always goes one-sided or the other.
Yeah. Or if you've injured yourself, right? Like,
yeah.
So I lately have been really left side dominant, and I'm usually right sided, but I've sprained my right ankle like so many times that it just like is so much weaker now. So
that makes sense. So I'm I'm a very left dominant rider, and I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. I haven't had like a major injury. When I get nervous, it's like my emergency brake to pull on that, on my left rein. And it makes my very sensitive thoroughbred very crooked. Like, it's very easy to see in a video when someone videos me riding. Like, very clearly, I make my horse crooked because I get unsure or not confident in what I'm about to do or ask my horse to do, and I crank down on that left rein. And Ronnie was very quick to pick up on that, even from our flat work. And he just really made me focus on sending my horse forward, which is something that is also a struggle for me because I am a hunter rider and I want to regulate the rhythm. And by that, I try to micromanage my horse instead of just telling my horse to go forward and letting him go forward. I want to micromanage by having having some contact on his face. So some of my top takeaways from the clinic was letting my horse go forward and not worrying about a frame. It's pretty easy to get my horse on the bit and get him going. And Ronnie said something to me that really stuck with me was that he goes to all these horse shows and he sees these riders, get on their horse in the warm up, and they're immediately cranking their horse's head down in the warm up to, get them look like they're round when they're not round because they haven't even warmed up yet, right? They haven't moved forward. So that's something that I've changed in my warm up is just getting on my horse on a loose rein, sending him forward, getting him in a free-flowing gait, and then once he's warmed up, asking him to come down on the bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Just because it's something you don't really think of. You get on, you think like you need, everyone's watching me. I should get my horse in a frame, right? No, you should warm up your horse first.
Yeah, they got to be in front of your leg. They got to be moving, not dallying along.
Exactly. So for my crooked issues, I just, I try not to have like a tight, like I'm a person whose hands on the reins slide all the time. Like sometimes I have more contact and I have shorter reins, and then I let them, they like slowly get longer over time, and it makes no sense. Like I want to give to my horse and then I never pick my reins back up. So he made me focus on holding my reins so I had contact all the time, not letting go, not giving my horse any extra rein. But when I was doing that, like when I was having a moment where I was trying to like grip really hard with that left rein, I would just send my hands forward up my horse's neck, past the withers. So in order to get straight, I would put leg on my horse and send him forward into my hand. And then I would physically move my hands forward, which sounds pretty normal, right? Sounds like a very rational thing to do when you're riding. But for me, it was like trying to, pat my head and rub my stomach at the same time. It was like the hardest thing for me to like physically comprehend. But once I did it like 5 or 6 times, I was like, okay, I feel the difference in my horse. That's all it took, right? You needed somebody to yell at you and tell you, let go with your left rein. And so the clinic was 2 days. The first day we just worked over poles. And he set up some really interesting grid exercises, which I will share in the Facebook group because I think they're useful to anybody, no matter what discipline you ride. And it was all of the same basic things I've already told you, just getting your horse straight, getting your horse moving forward, and maintaining a rhythm. And I think that is so important, that like just those basic things, it doesn't really matter what discipline you're riding, doesn't matter how big you're jumping. Those are the foundational things that you have to focus on in order to accomplish anything, right?
Absolutely.
Do you guys have any exercises for, when you're crooked, how you kind of like work yourself out of being crooked or left dominant or right dominant? Or do you have anything that you use that really help you like establish rhythm?
So for the crookedness, the biggest thing is It's so weird because when you are crooked and then you get straight, you don't feel straight. You know what I mean? So it's very hard when somebody says you're straight now and you're like, there's no way I'm straight right now. Like, I don't feel like I'm straight because you've gotten adapted to being crooked. So, I mean, if you can find somewhere, even if it's ever so often, to like ride with mirrors so that you can see it yourself as well, or have somebody, like, especially like if your trainer's telling you you're crooked, have somebody video it so then you can actually see, look, even though I feel crooked, I actually am straight once they're telling me X, Y, and Z. And a lot of that is, keeping your reins short so they're not getting in your pocket so that sometimes people want to ride with them like in your crotch almost.
That's me.
Yeah, that's me too.
And so the biggest thing is I found these, and I actually don't know who makes them, which is terrible. The tack store carries them, but they're these reins and they're rubber, but they're soft, but they have little notches. One of my students had them and they're great because her reins used to slip all the time. And I'm like, you need to she had these notches. And so she's like, look, I'm like, grab the second notch and don't, if you feel that you're getting too long, make sure you're on that second notch so you can keep your hands forward and so that you are essentially giving to a sense.
Jess, I think I have those reins,
they're super soft though. Like they're not the ones that are like rubber and then have the big notches that I've had. These like are really soft and like you can barely see the knots in them almost.
So the ones I have are the ones we reviewed on the podcast a while ago. It's the In Horse We Trust reins, and the notches are movable. You know what I mean? So my trainer can literally move them.
That's even better.
This is where your hand should be. And I love them. I love them to death, but I'm still crooked in them.
But if you're crooked but if you hold those and you think that they're short enough, because a lot of times when you're moving them to get longer. And so I also put like a visual point. So like our breastplates work like when they're jumping so that your hands are always up there, but also like I used to use like a neck strap, like an old school neck strap, just so that it was a visual point for me that I would remember to put my hands up that way. Because then I feel like the more you put them in your crotch, the more you're getting crooked because you're like almost hunched over and not sitting up and looking forward.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's really interesting. What about any exercises that you like for regulating pace? So for me, I have a horse who is pretty naturally rhythmic. Like when he picks up the canter, he's got like a smooth as silk canter. But for me, it's sending him forward, like I always bury him at the bottom of the fence. And Ronnie kept telling me, send your horse forward. He just needs to go forward. And to me, it feels fast. But then when I watch the video, it doesn't look fast, right? So it's just reworking the regulating in your brain on what you think is fast.
Have you done poles on the ground, like in a big circle? And so we'll do 2 poles on a circle. And it can be a big circle. And then you do the same amount of strides on both sides. So then you're making sure that you're doing the same. So, and we'll do it adjustable, right? So you can do 4 strides to get to the next pole and then 4 strides again. Or, you can make kind of patterns about it, but they always have to be equal so that you're doing the same number of strides. You can do it on straight lines as well and be like, I'm going to get down the line in 5 strides. I'm going to get down the line in 4 strides. I'm going to get down the line in 7 strides. And play with that adjustability so if you're actually picking down to it or if you're getting long and what it is. The poles will actually help you tell you.
Absolutely. And so something that Ronnie set up at the clinic, which I thought was really interesting, is he set up a pole grid that were 3 triangles connected together. And I'll share a video because it's hard to explain in this way, but when you see the video, it'll make sense. And we used the pole grid the first day of the clinic where we would trot in and kind of do like a bending line through it where you trot in and you have to trot out through a turn. And then you come back, you loop back around and trot in and trot out another angle. And then we would canter in and canter out, but he'd have us canter in through the middle of the poles. So you would go over the long side of one triangle over a long pole, and then you would have to canter out over where all the poles intersect to make a triangle. So it's like, 4 poles touching in the middle, and you'd have to canter out over them, which was literally the hardest exercise I did all weekend at the clinic because I had to put my leg on to keep my horse straight through the exercise. and he had to have some momentum to get through it, or else he just put his feet all over the place. So it really forced me to focus on the pace, that I couldn't let him back off. I had to push him through it, even though we were only working on ground poles, which was really interesting to me. So I'll share a video in the Facebook group so you guys can see the exercise and how we wrote it, which was pretty neat for me. But what about tips for sharpening the aids? This was something someone asked in our Facebook group. Like, if you have a horse that you feel like you have to nag all the time to get on your leg, do you have any tips for sharpening those specific tools to get your horse to go forward?
I have one, and I use it all the time. And it's just using the long side as kind of like, I guess I use like the corners as my markers. Okay. And I'll just like collected canter in, and then I'll ask for a hand gallop, and then, by whatever letters next or whatever like point I've made, I bring them back and ask for a slow collected canter again. And I find that just doing that, down the long sides, on the short ends, whatever you want to do, that I think gets not only, the horse to listen to your leg, when he doesn't want to, suck back, but also, it helps you guys to kind of get in sync, like, oh, this is the aid I want for forward momentum. This is the aid I want for you to come back and collect and use your hind. So that actually, I learned that in a Bernie Tarek clinic, actually. And I think that's great for sharpening the aids.
I like that too. Now, what about downward transitions, on how to make a smooth one without your horse getting too far on the forehand? Do you guys have any suggestions for downward transitions?
When I did the EAP, the USHJA one, Julie Winkle really got after me for this, because my big Berkeley horse was actually an Amish plow horse when he was a 2-year-old. So his go-to walk is like this. It's the slowest thing I've ever felt ever. And so his instinct when you ask him to walk is just to really fall on his forehand. And what she had me do a lot was just, really pick my hands up in that downward transition and make sure I'm going forward into it. Just like closing my leg, like, yes, we're going to slow down, to the walk, but we're not going to lose all of our momentum and just kind of pull a Clydesdale and plop down on our front end.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, because I think a lot with the downward transition, everybody goes to their hands for the downward transition, and they forget about their leg and going forward into a downward transition. And that's one of the hardest things. So we do a lot where we just kind of teach the horse that if you squeeze your thighs and allow them to go down, but then you support with your leg, your lower leg, so they keep going forward, the downward transition becomes easier.
Interesting. All right, guys, it's time for Rose and Thorn. Who's ready?
So my Rose is kind of exciting. The little halflinger 3-year-old that I have in training right now, we're going to our first horse show in Ohio. So it'll be his very first mounted horse show. He's already won a couple like breed specific shows for like in hand stuff. But this will be his first time competing actually with someone on him. So that's exciting. I'm both nervous and excited. It's kind of tough because like I ride alone a lot, and I am lucky if I can get my boyfriend to come ride, with me. And he is doing well with one other horse, but this class should be like 50 strong. So we'll see how he does. A little nervous about that, but I think it'll go okay. And my thorn is that it's hay season. So I work with my neighbor, and he's got about like 100 acres of hay field. So in turn for helping him get hay for winter for his 5 horses, he lets me, pay at a discounted rate for my guys. And I hate hay. I hate throwing hay. I hate stacking hay. Everything about it. My arms are all cut up. You get hay splinters. It's not a fun time. And my boyfriend loves it. So then when he's happy, it makes me even more frustrated because I'm cranky and he wants to laugh and have a good time. What about you guys?
Because we've made people sit and wait for this special news the whole episode, and so they got to wait to almost the very end. But
I was gonna say, are you gonna have surprising news too?
No, you get the big surprise. So my rose is that this weekend I get to hang out with Glenn and Jemmy from the Horse Radio Network.
Nice.
They're going to be in town in Sarasota, and we are in true Heels Down Happy Hour style. We're going to do a tiki boat cruise, but it's not even what you think. It is literally a boat cruise where you're sitting at a tiki bar, and it's a circular little tiki bar, and there's like 8 seats at the bar, and that's it. That's the whole boat. And then we go out in the water.
I've seen those on the internet.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
So much fun.
So I get to finally meet Jemmy in person and hang out with Glenn and meet some of the other hosts from the Horse Radio Network. And I'm just excited that they're here and they're so close and that they invited me. So I'll make sure to take lots of pictures and post them on the Heelstown Mag Instagram account if you guys want to follow along.
Absolutely.
So, and then my thorn, which is kind of not really a thorn, but it's a thorn for my bank account because I just bought a brand new to me dressage saddle, but I bought it from a Heels Down Happy Hour listener, Sarah, who I just happened to see. She listed this saddle for sale, and it's gorgeous and beautiful and just happens to fit my horse perfectly. And I'm so excited. So, which just shows the power of our Facebook group because I bought a saddle from somebody who's in our Facebook group, which is so cool to me. So
that is
perfect.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you, Jess?
So mine is, I'll go with my thorn first. So my thorn is that everybody is getting excited for Lima and I can't go. So that is my thorn, is that it's going to be fun though. Like my mom and dad are going to support Doug. The owners are going. It'll be a lot of fun, but I can't go because I'm pregnant again. So that's my rose.
God.
Yeah. So, and this time we're having a baby girl.
Wow. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So Hudson's going to get a little sister. So yeah. So I'm only like 15 weeks. So not too far along, but super excited. So of course it's, whatever, it's fine. But with the Zika and everything down in Peru, it's just not worth the risk. And Hudson probably shouldn't go as well. So we are going to stay at home and cheer for Doug and Ginge on the way to go to Pan Am. So it'll be fun, but we're going to have to watch it on the TV.
Holy moly. Pain baby number 2.
Pain baby number 2.
So exciting.
So exciting.
So exciting. So it'll be so much fun. But yeah, my thorn is that I can't go. So that's kind of sad.
Have you tried to explain it to Hudson yet?
Yeah, he has no idea what I'm talking about. I think he just thinks I'm crazy. I mean, but I think he looks at me like that a lot when I'm explaining things to him. And I'm like, are you ready for a baby? And he goes, no. And I'm like, do you want a carrot? No. Do you want a cookie? No. And I'm like, okay, Sue, all of it's no. Like, you don't want anything. Okay. So I'm pretty sure he's like, once my belly starts getting bigger, he's going to be like, what is that? What is happening? And then when she pops out, he's going to be like, no,
put it back.
So I think he's going to be in for a big surprise, but no, I can't wait. It'll be a lot of fun. So they can grow up together pretty close in age, because this one's due January. She's due on January 7th. And for all the listeners, Hudson is a Christmas Eve baby. So my guess is she's going to be New Year's Eve, so I can spend another holiday in the hospital.
Oh, no.
I'm like, I bet Hudson wasn't early. So, I mean, I doubt she'll be early, but I'm like, you know what? It's probably going to be Christmas Eve. I mean, it'll be Christmas Eve for Hudson and New Year's Eve for the new one. So I just laugh.
Oh,
still fun.
Cleaner water helps horses stay healthy. Fully hydrated horses perform better, they have higher feed efficiency, and they're less prone to colic. To learn more about Ritchie Industries Automatic Waterers line of products, go to classicequinebyricchie.com. All right, guys, so we have a really interesting mailbag this week from Ashley in the Heels Down Happy Hour podcast lounge. And Jess, I feel like this is probably best for you to take. So Ashley says, I feel like I need an eventing dressage bit guide for dummies. I always get so worried and confused over what is legal and what is not. Obviously, plain snaffles are legal and some mullet mouths are, but some aren't. Some single jointed bits are, but some aren't. I'm pretty sure what I use is legal, but I feel like every few months I'm worrying, oh no, what if it's not? So, Jess, as someone who's in the eventing world, do you have any advice for Ashley on how to pick a legal dressage bit for eventing?
So the hardest thing is it does keep changing and everything, but for the majority of it, like it just depends on your horse. So if it's a normal, like bit that's in the program already, like in the Omnibus or online or wherever else that you can find it, if you can see the drawing of it, then it means it's legal. And so if it's a pretty generic bit that you know is legal, then we use a lot of loose ring snaffles that are plain and nothing special about them, normal size, like not too thin, not too thick kind of thing. We know those are no problem. We don't ask, but we have a couple that have thinner rubber ones that they started to question with the 14 millimeter rule that just came out that the FEI passed. Now the USCF is taking to it as well. And it kind of caused an uproar, I think mid-season, like in, I don't know, March, April, somewhere in there. We were at a show and everybody's freaking out that the bits are too small. And these are not, I mean, it's a rubber bit. It's not a harsh bit at all. And so we actually took them all to either the TD or the steward, whoever's involved, and said, look, is this legal right now? And before we even went to the dressage. And that's the safest way to go. So if you have one of those bits that you think is in the gray area, then I would just, before you even tack up your horse, go ask in the office, can I speak to somebody that can approve this, and just get it approved by a steward or a TD before you even start. And then you don't even have to worry about it. Then they go to bit check and you've already talked about it. And then that's the safest. And once you kind of have gone through, if it's a gray one, you might have to do it at quite a few horse shows, unfortunately. But that's what we do. If we have any kind of questions, we just ask ahead of time. If it's a bonnet question or whatever else, we do it at the very beginning so we don't worry about when we get down to bit check.
That's a good idea. So if you have an email or if you have a question for us or that you would like us to answer on the air, you can send us an email at hello@heelsdownmedia.com, or like we've said many times, you should join us in our Facebook lounge, which is the Heels Down Happy Hour podcast lounge. We have a ton of fun there. We share cocktail recipes. We ask questions about horses. We just gripe when we need to gripe. It's a really supportive group. It's the best. You should join us. So if you want to hear more from us, you should subscribe to the Heels Down Brief at bit.ly/hdbrief. And if you love this show, please write us a great review anywhere you listen to it, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on Google Play. And many thanks to this week's partners, Arena Saddles, Ice Horse, EIS, and Classic Equine by Richie. All right, guys, that's a wrap. So I feel like we need to cheers specifically to Pain Baby number 2.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So excited.